You know that physical decline that comes with getting older? It honestly feels completely inevitable, right? Like, as the years go by, our bones are just going to get weaker, our muscles will tire faster, and our overall physical resilience is going to fade away. But what if the core villain here isn't actually just time? What if the real culprit is a biological switch hiding right there in our cells? A switch that we can actually learn to control.
And we need to figure this out fast. Because by the year 2050, the population of Americans aged 65 and older is projected to boom by an absolutely incredible 47%. To put that into perspective, we are talking about a massive jump from 58 million to roughly 82 million people. So this isn't just some shifting demographic. It literally raises the urgent stakes for our entire healthcare and social support systems. We desperately need a way to keep people not just living longer, but actually remaining physically independent and healthy.
Which brings us to a massive and honestly fascinating biological puzzle. What if we could just turn off that aging inflammation switch? What if the frailty that we so closely associate with old age is actually something we can actively, medically pause?
Well, welcome to This Explainer, because today we're diving into some breaking research that treats this exact question like a major news story. We're looking at a brand new paper published in the journal Aging and Disease. It's titled, Increased Stability of Tristetraprolin mRNA Supports Bone Health and Decreases Frailty During Aging. Lead authors Ramkumar Thiagarajan, Bruce Trowan, and Keith Kirkwood have seriously delivered a major scoop here. This isn't just some incremental study. It is a profound look at how we might actively preserve our physical strength as we get older.
Now, to really grasp their discovery, we have to understand the specific problem they were trying to tackle. It's a concept called inflammaging. As we age, our immune system undergoes this chronic, low-grade activation. Think of it like a smoldering biological fire inside your body. It doesn't cause a massive fever or anything, but over decades it slowly and quietly wears down your tissues, your muscles, and your bones. This inflammaging is a primary driver of the physical frailty and weakened immunity that we associate with getting older.
Enter our hero for today, Tristetraprolin, or TTP for short. TTP is an RNA-binding protein. But in plain English, it's basically your body's natural fire extinguisher. It binds to the specific messengers that cause inflammation, known as pro-inflammatory cytokines, and it actively promotes their destruction. But here is the critical problem. As we naturally get older, our levels of TTP just kind of fade away. The fire extinguisher runs empty, and that smoldering inflammaging totally takes over.
So the researchers asked a really simple but brilliant question. What if we keep the extinguisher full? To test this, they tweaked the genetic code of a mouse model to stabilize the TTP RMNA. This meant the protective protein stayed active and present even as the mice aged all the way up to 22 months old. And just for context, for a mouse, 22 months is quite elderly. To see if this actually worked, they didn't just look at cells in a petri dish. They looked at how these elderly mice actually lived and moved, using something called the Frailty Index. Now, this is an adapted version of the exact same framework used by human doctors to assess frailty in aging patients. They meticulously measured things like unexpected weight loss, exhaustion on a treadmill, poor walking speed, weak grip strength, and overall physical inactivity. And the results? They were staggering. Zero frailty. In both the genetically altered female and male mice, frailty was completely absent at 22 months old. I mean, let that sink in for a second. They essentially crossed the word frail entirely out of the equation. While the normal wild-type mice were slowing down, losing their grip strength, and getting frail, the mice with stabilized TTP retained a remarkably youthful physical capacity. In fact, some of their metrics match those of 6-month-old young mice. But the researchers didn't stop at physical movement. They looked inside. If you look at these micro-CT scans, it's almost like looking at classified evidence. You can see a striking difference. Compared to the normal-aged mice, the male mice with stabilized TTP had an undeniably thicker, healthier bone microarchitecture. They literally had significantly higher bone mineral density and a much thicker cortical bone structure. So why were the bones so much thicker? Well, it all comes down to osteoclasts. These are specific cells that break down and resorb bone tissue. You can think of them as bone-eating cells. As we age, our bone marrow produces certain immune precursor cells, and in an aging, inflamed body, those precursor cells tend to morph into these bone-eating osteoclasts, quietly destroying our skeletal density right from the inside out.
And microscopic tissue stains provide the physical proof of this. In the genetically altered mice, there are significantly fewer of these bone-eating cells. So the biological fire extinguisher didn't just stop the inflammation, it actually stopped the immune cells from turning into bone destroyers in the first place.
However, biology is complex, and we've got to look at the nuances here because the benefits were actually sex-specific. The altered male mice gained significantly thicker bones and better grip strength. The female mice, on the other hand, did not gain thicker bones, but they did retain excellent walking speed and treadmill endurance. Why the difference? Well, the researchers suspect the natural decline of estrogen in aging females might limit TTP's ability to completely rescue bone health, even while it still preserves endurance. It just goes to show how incredibly complex our hormones and immune systems truly are.
But beyond just the bones, keeping TTP active actually rewired the immune system. The bone marrow and spleen retained a remarkably youthful immune cell profile. The genetic tweak basically restrained the immunosuppressive cells that usually expand as we get older, and instead it preserved a strong, healthy reservoir of immune T cells, like T helper and T regulatory cells.
And they proved this effect all the way down to the code of life. RNA sequencing confirmed that the biological pathways responsible for bone destruction were literally dialed down at the cellular level. The genes telling the body to eat its own bone were quieted, while the healthy RNA metabolism pathways were boosted. It's a real game changer.
Okay, let's be real for a second and maintain our scientific integrity here. The major caveat to all of this: these are genetically altered mice, not humans. Furthermore, this genetic tweak was global. It happened in every single tissue of their bodies from the exact moment they were born. Obviously, we cannot genetically engineer adult humans in this way to fix frailty.
But here is the practical future implication, straight from the authors themselves. These findings position TTP as a promising target for addressing frailty and inflammation associated with aging, because if we know the exact biological switch that prevents frailty, we can start looking for modern medical ways to flip it. If we can develop drugs or mRNA therapies that stabilize TTP in humans, we might actually be able to halt this age-related physical decline.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought. Could a pharmacological TTP stabilizer, a pill or maybe a specialized treatment that mimics this genetic tweak, be the ultimate key to preserving our physical independence as we age? Just imagine a future where getting older doesn't automatically mean getting frail. This incredible paper just brought that future one step closer to reality. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and keep questioning the world around you.